It is always exciting to have a guest on from the most recent Olympics from Beijing just a couple months ago. Even more exciting to have somebody who gets to tell stories about their first Olympics. And it is always the most exciting when we get to talk to somebody from the single greatest sport ever known, ever in the history of mankind, mogul skiing, my favorite sport. I'm going to assume Ben's favorite sport by the time we're done this interview. And I'm going to assume our guest favorite sport. Today, we're talking to, we can say, Olympic finalists, American mogul skier, Olivia Giaccio. Olivia, so happy to have you here with applause.
I love the applause. Thank you for having me.
I'm not lying when I say that moguls is hands down my favorite sport of all sports, and I'm Canadian and I'm not allowed to answer anything other than hockey, but I go against the rules. Such a fantastic sport, and I always find it interesting whenever we have skiers on here, regardless if it's moguls or something else, how young they actually start in the sport. So I'm going to take a wild guess. You might be one of these who started before you could walk, but maybe you'll surprise me. How did you actually get into skiing, and I guess particularly mogul skiing?
I started skiing when I was 2. My parents would go up to it. So I used to live in Reading, Connecticut, and my parents would drive up to Vermont every weekend with their high school friends back in like high school and college. And then that kind of continued with my brother and I. And so we, by extension, just ended up learning how to ski as well. And so I was 2 when I first strapped on skis, and I began mogul skiing at the age of 10. After my brother and I had kind of progressed through ski school, my mom had asked the ski club or the ski school where we should go to continue skiing with our peers, and just because they wanted to continue skiing with their friends and the 2 of them together as well on the weekends. So the ski instructors recommended the Killington Ski Club, and my mom just signed up my brother and I for a random program.
I was reading a little bit about Reading in Connecticut, Olivia. Doesn't seem like the biggest place, but seems like a nice little place. I found out actually though that Meat Loaf used to live there. I don't know if this is like some big thing that people in Reading talk about, but like when I'm looking through the notable people list, it's like Meat Loaf used to live in Reading. Is this something that is aware people in Reading know and talk about, that the great late Meat Loaf used to live in Reading?
I personally did not know that. But I lived there until I was 10, and I didn't know who that was until after I was 10.
You could have been your neighbour. You could have been like, "Oh, Mr. Loaf.
Yeah, seriously.
How are you? How are you going?"
That's so random.
Yeah, we like to bring the facts on this show, and clearly Colin likes to start off with the "How did you get into skiing?" I like to start off with the "Did you know Meat Loaf probably used to be your neighbour?" So you're welcome. I hope Colin's next question is better.
Yeah.
That could be the second worst question I've ever asked on this show, Olivia. Just saying, but hey, I like to start off strong, so you're welcome.
What would the first be?
There was
now I want to know.
You haven't even heard that one yet, Colin. No, trust me. There's an interview where I stumble, and I just don't like to revisit that one. That's, crash and burn, clearly. Colin, take it from Meat Loaf to something better, all right? Come on, I don't know where to go from that one. I'm lost already.
Actually, we know that like places like Colorado and Utah are obviously very big for skiing. I mean, I don't know much even about Connecticut, the climate and everything. I mean, is skiing kind of a year-round thing there? Is it normal that 2-year-olds are slapped on skis? Because I've got 3-year-old twins, and I can barely trust them on a trampoline that we have in the living room. I can't imagine putting skis on them.
Great question, by the way. That's a lot better than mine.
A trampoline is, I think, a little bit more aggressive, I guess, than putting skis on. I don't know. I think trampolining probably takes a little bit more coordination to do well, but I don't know. That's a great question, actually.
See, look at that. Look at that. Great question.
But in terms of the climate, definitely not a year-round thing that you can do there. And there's a bunch of small mountains there, but I don't know if I've actually ever skied in Connecticut. I mean, we always used to just drive up to Vermont on the weekends to Killington. Yeah.
Because Connecticut's a very flat state, right?
Common.
It's a very flat kind of state, isn't
Connecticut, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which,
I mean, especially when you compare it to like the mountains out west, but Yeah.
I'm not, I mean, again, my fact checking skills right now are obviously great. I'm too focused on finding about where Meat Loaf lives, but I'm not sure of the amount of Connecticut Winter Olympians we have had on the show. But were there other sports that you sort of played a lot growing up? Was this sort of a case of just staying a kid, trying your hand at different sports, or was it sort of once you had the taste of skiing, that was sort of the one that you always liked to focus on?
Growing up, I always played a lot of soccer as well. And I was probably more involved in soccer until I was maybe like 12 or 13. And then I also continued playing soccer through probably about half of high school. But in terms of Connecticut Winter Olympians, there are a fair amount. So I think a fair amount more than you would expect. I'm pretty sure Julia Marino, the snowboarder who won silver in Beijing, is from Connecticut.
Right.
And then there are also one or two aerialists who like had their start in gymnastics and then transitioned to aerial skiing. We're also from Connecticut. And then my teammate, actually, Hannah Soar, is from Connecticut as well.
We need to get a few more of these on the show then, I think, Olivia. I think we're focusing too much on the parts.
So you can ask them all about Meat Loaf too.
Exactly. That's exactly it. That's the only goal right now is to get all the Connecticut athletes on and go, hey, were you Meat Loaf's neighbor as well? Like, were you the one? Like, big questions and off the podium. We're that show.
You also mentioned, your brother, I guess, was what you said, skied. Like, was there any type of like competitiveness growing up? Did he get into mogul skiing as well, or did he kind of go off in a different direction?
He did get into mogul skiing as well. And so he played soccer pretty competitively throughout his entire high school career. He kind of did like the inverse that I did. He stopped mogul skiing about a little more than halfway through high school, but he continued playing soccer. Early on, I mean, everything I did when I was little, I wanted to be better than my brother, especially because like, we learned how to ride a bike at the same time. I mean, so even though he's like a year and a half younger than I am, but I remember actually in the summer, we would go up and train at Lake Placid for water ramping. And so you couldn't start training on the water ramps until you were 10 years old. And so I'd already been water ramping for a year, but I'd yet to do a backflip. I'd done some front flips and I wasn't really that scared, but I was like more excited to do it. So it was like the first day of summer jumping. And it was also my younger brother's first day ever water ramping, because he had just turned 10. And so I go up and it's like my fourth or fifth jump. I'm like, I'm a little nervous, getting ready to do my backflip. And then I did it and I was so excited. And then the next jump, my brother just went up and did it. And I was so mad. He'd only been water ramping for less than a day and I'd already done it for a year. And even then he was better than me.
Wow.
You play the age card though? They're like, I'm a year and a half younger. It means more.
No, he's a year and a half younger than me.
Oh, he's younger. Oh, then that's terrible for you. That's crushing.
Yeah, it's brutal.
Jeez, Colin, we start with the Meat Loaf. Now you're pissing her off. Like, we've got to keep her on this show somehow. Come on.
I've got a younger brother. Like, if my younger brother beats me at anything, I'm devastated.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And like, I mean, even when we weren't in the same sport anymore, it used to get to me, like in taking the ECT in high school. Like, he's definitely smarter than I am. And that used to bug me so much too. I mean, it still does. But
And that's why you went to the Olympics, to spite your brother. That's the only reason. You got that ticket to Beijing and you were like, guess what? Look what I got. You haven't got one of these. Who wins now? There we go.
There you go. Pretty much.
Solved it. Interview done. Thanks for joining us, Olivia. Did you sort of doing soccer and then with moguls, were the Olympics something that you looked at? Like, I know sort of with soccer, it's obviously, that's a sport where might not necessarily be the ultimate goal is the Olympics because you've got a World Cup. But was that something you ever looked at in Olympics as a possibility?
In the realm of soccer, not necessarily. I mean, as soon as I'd done my first figure skiing competition, I really just fell in love with it. And I was so excited to progress. And actually, like, once I done my first moguls event, like I had this little, I mean, I still have it, but it's like this little dream journal. And like the first thing I wrote in it was, I will win gold at the 2018 Winter Olympic Games with a double full and quartet.
Wow.
Which I did not do, but
You can delay that a few years,
I
you know.
dreamt big, so yeah.
There's white out, right?
Yeah. I wrote that in my journal, I think, for like the 1996 Olympics. I mean, I would have been like 9, but, you know, dream big, right? So I just keep delaying the year every now and then. The older and older I get, it gets further away. But I never give up on my dreams, Olivia, so just saying.
There you go, yeah.
She's not going back in time to 2018, if that's what you're getting at.
Would time travel could be invented? You don't know. Ask Meat Loaf. He could be brought back to life one day, and then you'll be talking to him about it. Go, hey, I need to stop mentioning Meat Loaf. Jesus, this is not funny anymore. It's embarrassing.
You know, I find it interesting in a lot of sports, age differences, because I think moguls is one of these sports where you definitely do get people who will start on the World Cup scene very young, but then you'll also get people where it's, you know, it's several years down the road. You made your World Cup debut, or was it 15 or 16 years old?
Yeah, my debut was when I was 15 in Deer Valley, Utah. And then the following year when I was 16, that was like my first almost full World Cup tour. I missed 2 events, but yeah, that was like my first full year.
So what has to go into that? Like, you're still in school, I'm assuming. You still have all these family responsibilities. Does one parent have to take the time off? Because this isn't just, okay, I'm going to go on a weekend for one competition. Like you said, you're almost on a full tour.
Yeah, in some senses, I grew up very quickly, but in other senses, I was still pretty naive, I think. After that first year, I grew up a lot and I learned how to manage my time and responsibilities a ton. And there were definitely some growing pains, I would say. But I'm definitely thankful I had that experience. Like, it's definitely set me up in terms of how I handle, or like my ambition to handle school and skiing at the same time, in university as well. And so even though that was definitely difficult, I was very thankful for that. And I also did go to an online high school, which helped a lot, which was Stanford Online High School. And that was like live time synchronous online classes.
When it comes to that traveling aspect at such a young age, and you're going to World Cups and you leave home and you're leaving your parents for a little bit. I mean, on paper, it's great. You get away from mum and dad, but it also can be a bit daunting, I can imagine. I read a lot through your blog, and we'll talk about it. Thank you so much for doing that blog. It's an incredible blog to get a great insight into your career. But I know you've been to Australia several times and went to Australia a fair bit around about that period as well. So what's that like at such a young age to get in a plane at about 16, 20-odd hour flight to the other side of the world? Is it daunting, or had you done a lot of traveling earlier on that maybe it wasn't as daunting as it might be for somebody your age at that point?
I definitely hadn't done much travel at all early on. I mean, my biggest, first time to Asia, first time to Australia, first time to South America were all because of skiing. I'd gone to Europe once previously, I think, but it was really short and with family as well. But I definitely got my second trip to Europe, my first big ski trip away. I definitely had a really good environment at that time when I think I was 15 maybe. And so I had a coach who definitely helped me kind of figure that out from a time management perspective a little bit more the year prior to World Cup too. So that helped to set me up a little bit. But I remember my first trip to Asia, which was to South Korea in 2017, I think, prior to for the Olympic test event in Pyeongchang. And I just remember feeling when is this flight going to end? And I mean, I pretty much did homework the whole flight, and I didn't really know how to do time change, adjust my circadian rhythm. So I remember I just got to the hotel and passed out for 13 hours.
Because I can imagine, I've done the trip plenty of times, but obviously for Australians, when we fly to the States or Canada, we're going back in time. So we like say leave on a Monday morning, we kind of arrive on a Monday morning, whereas on the way back, that's when we lose the day. Whereas for you, it's the opposite. It's obviously like I'm leaving on a Monday, but I'm arriving on like a Wednesday. So things like that when you fly to our part of the world obviously is a little bit different, and a very interesting experience, I can imagine.
Yeah, definitely. And one thing that's actually different culturally within mogul skiing itself is like the way the teams operate. So like with the Australian team, for instance, they're going to be away from home for 3 months at a time for the North American winter season as early as like 13 or 14, which from like United States perspective, when it comes to mogul skiing, we're really not home. I mean, the longest I've been away from home would be 6 weeks. So relative to a lot of other sports and then a lot of other sports within my sport, we actually haven't been far from home really for that long.
And that's the unique aspect of it is that, like obviously we're not really a winter country in Australia, so we chase it a lot more. But I bet you could have never imagined that when you were doing skiing that you would end up in Australia for skiing, because I'm sure that that's not a country you probably think of top of the list for skiing when you get involved in it. That is a place that you could go to further your career.
I think if I wasn't a mogul skier, that would probably be the case. But because their mogul program is pretty strong, given Jakari, Anthony, Matt Graham, Woods, and then like and Brody Summers, James Madison, and the depth of so many other skiers, and Dale Beck-Smith, of course. But
thank you.
yeah,
I was going to say, please tell me you've heard of
yeah,
Dale, like the GOAT. I was getting worried there. I know you're young, Olivia, but I'm like, Dale, come on, where is he? Yeah. He's our icon on this show. You need to know that.
I know. Yes, of course. That was actually my first pair of ID1s was his signature pair. When I think they made them in 150s one year, but they were pink and black and they were awesome too. So.
Wow.
But they so that was, I mean, as soon as I had started skiing, I knew that, I guess, for mogul skiing, like more competitively, I knew that it was a possibility that someday I might go to Australia. But I feel like really we had been kind of a random part of Australia, like being in Gentine.
Yeah, not tourist mecca. I'll say that. But for winter sports, it's a tourist mecca. Most of our athletes we talk to on the show, winter athletes from Australia, are from that part of the country, or they're from Victoria, sort of Mount Hotham area. So generally that's where they come from. My state in Australia, where I'm from, funnily enough, is the only state where we've never had a Winter Olympian. So again, hopeful for me that I could be Tasmania's first Winter Olympian.
You're going to be the one to break it.
You never know.
There you go. Yeah,
and that is the third now dumbest thing Ben said on the show, Bob. We're waiting for the podcasting sport to come.
I'll be shot by the end of this interview. It seems it's not my best performance, clearly. So yeah.
Now, you mentioned your dream journal and that Pyeongchang was your original benchmark. From what I understand, though, I mean, you were already on the World Cup circuit prior to that, but you were very close to making Pyeongchang. What did it come down to?
It definitely, I remember going into the last event, it was between me and one other girl, the girl who ended up qualifying in like the 4th place in the standings for the US. And I remember I needed a 9th place, but I mean, the 3 events leading up to that, I just hadn't competed at my best. And my mind was all over the place. And that was like my first go at the like Olympic qualification process. And it was definitely, I remember my first year on World Cup to the second, like the feeling on the team and then on World Cup in general was just so different. And that was definitely something for me to get used to. And then I had a lot of internal pressure that I put on myself to make the games. And so that definitely got in my way. But I would say in the long run, it made me a stronger athlete and gave me that like extra push and motivation for the 2022 games. And one thing though is I was not close at all to the trick package. but I think after that, it's like when I really started going for tricks more. Like I had the capability to do them on time, like prior to the 2018 games, not cork 10s, but other tricks. And then kind of like pushing the women's side of sport has always been a huge goal of mine. And so that was something I really finally realized after 2018 as well. And so I kind of realized, I think that like to change the sport, I would have to put a little bit of risk into it as well. So.
Well, and the selection process is another thing that's kind of interesting. Depending on what sports you have in the Olympics, with moguls, it really is kind of a selection process. Like the countries can send this many athletes, and I mean Pyeongchang, it was way less competitive than it is going into Beijing. Beijing, I think particularly the female side of American mogul skiing was maybe the most competitive I've ever seen. I've been following the sport for forever. And it felt like no matter what, somebody who was a medal hopeful was going to be left at home. I mean, was there a lot of pressure or anticipation? Like, did you have any type of clue that you're going to be one of the? I would assume, maybe Jalen Koff's feeling a little bit more confident just because she'd been there before. But how close was it, or how nerve wracking was it knowing that you might be a top performer who's going to be left at home?
Very nerve-wracking. So I think there's like a couple different layers to that question. So going into it, my experience from 2018 made me realize a number of things. One of which was that I had in the past kind of treated mogul skiing as like everything in my life, but I kind of figured out also who I was without mogul skiing because I was the first alternate in that process, and kind of what at the time had felt like a lifelong dream was completely shattered. And so I knew going in, like the one thing I was going to stick to was that no matter what happened, I knew that it would be okay. And so that I think took more of the internal pressure off, like from like an identity standpoint when it comes to linking myself to mogul skiing. And so I was able to go into it a bit a bit gutsier, maybe I would say, and like with a little bit more grit. And so going into Ruka though, before we left, it wasn't until the week before we left for our last training camp in Ruka prior to the first World Cup of the year in Ruka that I had learned that I actually even had a World Cup start. Because of my ACL injury 2 years prior, it was a little bit of a slow comeback. Slow in some senses, not in other senses. I mean, I was progressing really well, but I hadn't necessarily competed at my best, even though I was skiing better than I had before. And so the U.S. team had decided to take, I believe it was 7 girls and 5 guys at the time, or 6 and 4, I don't quite remember. And so they decided to bring a very stacked field of U.S. women in the hopes that we would duke it out in the World Cup. And I was very thankful to get that start because I capitalized on it right away, which I was very happy about. But I mean, one thing about that whole selection process, I guess generally though, going into the games is like, it's not over until it's over. And so like after the first day at Deer Valley, people were coming up to me, congratulating me on making the games. And I was like, no, there's another day of competition left. I haven't done this yet. Like if like say Tess had won and Kai had gotten second on that day, then I wouldn't have gone to the games. Like it's not over until it's over. And so things could have shaken out differently. And I was thankful to have like focus on my process throughout the whole experience and competed what I think was the best I've competed and just kind of given it my all going in. But yes, it was definitely down to the last minute. And then Jalen and Hannah had qualified by the end of December. So there were only 2 spots left going into all the January.
It's so fascinating, just every winter athlete we have on the show, just this process, because we interview summer athletes and they're qualifying sometimes 2 years before the bloody Olympics. Yeah, we knew 2 years beforehand, whereas literally days before the opening ceremony, you can find out. And then it's also a case of, I know with some sports, I think freestyle skiing is one of them, where it's like because there's so many disciplines in freestyle skiing, you might be designated a certain amount of spots that all of a sudden Team USA could be like, okay, well, we're going well in moguls right now, so we'll designate an extra spot or 2 to moguls. We'll take away from the aerials and we'll take away from the slopestyle. So like even within your own sport, you're battling with other people from different disciplines sometimes. So that is just, it's so unique versus a swimmer who's like, yeah, set this time, be in the top 2 in trials, you'll go. If you're third, you might make a relay team. So it's kind of like it's a very unique process with the winter athletes.
Yeah, you definitely brought up a great point there. I think that's something that a lot of people don't necessarily know about winter sports, and then like freestyle skiing in general, and kind of the category that falls into. That was never really a worry for women's mogul skiing, but I know there was a point where it was possible. Like the men had to do well enough to earn all 4 of their spots for the US.
The one thing you mentioned just before about progressing the women's sport, which I loved hearing, because I know you're the first woman to ever attempt a cork 1080, and we want to learn about that. But an example I like to use of that, of how much that can go, we have an Australian aerial skier, Lydia Lassler, icon of Australian winter sports. And back in Sochi, she won bronze, but she did so by attempting the first woman to ever do a quad twisting triple somersault. She didn't land it, but she did enough to get the bronze. And now this is a trick I believe that many women are doing and landing now, but the progression at the time was so big that she took that sport so far. So is that something that by attempting a cork 1080, doing these tricks, that you are hoping that in 10 years time, it's just going to be standard for women to be doing a cork 1080, everything else like that? And does that sort of, in a way, mean more to you in a weird aspect than, say, winning an Olympic medal, which I'm sure you'd like to do, but the progression of the sport for women maybe a little bit further, you can look back on your career and go, well, I did that. I was a part of that.
Yeah, it's hard to say because I haven't done the latter option yet, and I'll get back to you for sure after. Yep. And I'll get back to you for sure in a couple of years, but yes, definitely that is the goal. I think aerials is really neat in that, like, the degree of difficulty is incorporated to such a high extent where it's interesting how if you do fall, you can win bronze. So I think it progresses the sport a bit faster, whereas on the mogul side of things, you're not always necessarily rewarded for taking that risk. And so I think at times that's why the women haven't necessarily progressed as far as they're capable of, or as fast as they're capable.
For the team interactions and everything, or if there is any team interactions, one of the things that I find interesting whenever I'll go to the World Cup in Calgary is just seeing how you'll have these different team dynamics. The Japanese teams like very much all huddled together and everything. And then there's other teams who are kind of off doing their own thing. And I don't know if I've really paid close enough attention to what the American skiers are, but yet there's been such a huge shift, which really you've been present for. Decade ago, 15 years ago, it was just Hannah Kearney, and now you and Hannah Soar and Tess Johnson and Jalen Koff and Kai Owens. It just goes on and on and on. I have to imagine there's got to be something where you guys motivate or push each other. But I mean, do you really get the opportunities to train or interact together? And is there anything that far together as a team that really helps push you guys to the level of success that you're all having?
Absolutely. We spend a lot of time together during the season, and during off season too, when we're on camps. And then at this point, most of us are based out of Park City. So even at like water ramp camps, or if we're all in town at the same time, we'll end up spending a lot of time together. And I would say the biggest thing for our team is just kind of the level that everyone's at. And there is someone on the team who has an aspect, one of the 3 aspects of mogul skiing, and is very, very good at it, like the best in the world or one of the top 3 in the world. And so that's a pretty awesome training dynamic in the sense that, like, you can always use that as a benchmark to push yourself, which I think is very rare from a training environment standpoint.
You touched on it before, your ACL that you did in 2019, and I'm going to touch on it again because we will still talk about this, your amazing blog. Reading your posts about that injury is just harrowing, just hearing your recollection of everything that you went through in that moment, and just everything. I don't think I've ever read a perspective from an athlete before that really tells it how it is. When that happens after missing out in 2018, that happens in 2019, how can you take that level of disappointment and setback to really spur it into what eventually would have a happy ending by making the Olympics in 2022? Is it obviously those initial moments are pretty hard, but do you then just work with a sports psych to use that as fuel to burn that desire a little bit further moving forwards towards 2022?
So also thank you for the compliment. That was actually one of my favorite posts that I've written, and Taylor O'Neill, who I think
we did. We recently
recently
just had Taylor on. Yes.
Yeah, she had told me after I wrote that blog that she was like, wow, that's exactly what it feels like. That's crazy that you put that into words, which was weird to have that sort of validation, just because I'm also, I mean, the experience is, I think, very different for everyone, like when it comes to like the mental, emotional, and physical side, like interaction of all of it. But after that, yeah, it was definitely devastating. But I mean, I think at that point, it was honestly the best thing that could have happened to me in the long run. I would say, and I think I've said this probably in my blog at some point, but it ended up being much more of a mental recovery than it was a physical recovery for me, just because at that time when I did tear my knee, it was not quite similar, but I mean, I wasn't mentally there for competing, and I wasn't mentally tough enough to be my best every day that I was training and competing. And so I did start working with a different sports psych, started collaborating more closely and intensely with mentors that I still work with today. And yeah, just kind of went to work on relentlessly changing like my mental outlook and how I handle competition and training, and really how I go about my everyday life, I would say. So it's kind of like a bottom-up change that I worked through at like starting with like the little moments, like straightening my knee, and then bringing that to returning to snow, and then to in the competition gate, and then really refining my competitive self, and then seeing where that could go.
It's so fascinating. I always get so interested in that real mental aspect. You mentioned Taylor, and I mean, she's been through 300 ACLs, right? So she knows exactly what that's like. So I can imagine she definitely feels that way. And her interview, you know, she talked very much in depth what that was like. We had an Australian Olympic swimmer on at the end of last year, Zach Stubblety-Cook, and he went on to win gold in Tokyo, but he talked at length, similar to what you said about he had a very disappointing Commonwealth Games back in 2018, did not do what he thought he did, was thinking about giving it up, and just was at such a low, got on a sports psych, and it helped turn it around. And now he can reflect on that very low part of his career and go, it was weirdly the best thing to ever happen for me. For me to fail at a big meet, not do my best, and nearly give it up was actually the best thing that ever happened to me, and that helped me towards winning an Olympic gold medal. So it's always interesting to hear that from an athlete when you have such a devastating thing happen to you, that in reflection, you can go, well, shit, yeah, that's probably the best thing that ever happened to me. It helped me towards this. And when you're back on this show in 4 years' time, Olivia, with an Olympic gold medal around your neck, I'm sure you'll even think that even more.
Yeah, for sure. I hope so. Yeah, it is really interesting and fascinating how that works kind of psychologically as well. And I mean, that was something I had kind of heard too. So, I mean, I had talked with Shannon Barkey, and yeah, I think mostly Shannon, like right once over coffee right after I'd gotten surgery. And that was one thing I vividly remember her saying, just that like from her own experience, and then watching other teammates go through it as well. It's just kind of like it can be career changing. It's kind of like a make or break moment, I would say.
It's sorry to Colin jump in there, but is it a badge of honor for a mogul skier to do an ACL? I mean, it just seems like just a sport where your knees are fucked anyway, right? So it's kind of like,
I was thinking the same thing.
It's going to happen eventually, surely.
I don't know. I mean, I was there was a point when I would be on World Cup. I mean, this was probably right when I came back from my knee, and it would be like 75% of the team had done their knee at one point.
Wow.
But then looking around in New Zealand, and I was the only one who had ever done.
Yeah, but don't
ACL.
Don't compare it to New Zealand. They're
Which-
weak, Olivia. Come on, they're Kiwis.
No, New Zealand, like my team when
Right,
we went to New
All right,
Zealand.
there you go.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Any
Which
chance
is
for me to dig into
awesome.
Kiwis? Come on, got to do it.
Now, I don't know if the time overlaps here or not, but kind of on the topic of like setbacks that, maybe eventually pay off in the long run. When the pandemic happened, I mentioned this, I think it was when we had Britt Cox on here last, that I remember being at the Calgary World Cup event right before everything shut down and seeing in the airport all these people with masks and being like, ooh, I wonder how long it's going to be. And the next thing you know, you've got World Cups canceled. And then even the following year, obviously things are very different, no crowds and less events and everything. Were you back to competing at that point? And do you remember what it was like to have to compete in the pandemic and maybe especially having less opportunities? It's not like this is a World Cup where you're out there, 15, 20 times in a year. I mean, there's a handful of events you might have to make an impact.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So when COVID hit in March of 2020, I was actually in the early stages of my ACL rehab. And so the gym closed down for a little while and I had to do PT on my own, which thankfully I was past the part of like most soft tissue work, because if that was like right after surgery, I'm not really sure what I would have done without a PT to help me kind of manipulate that and get that like recovery stimulated a bit faster. But then the following December is when I first came back from my knee. And I mean, there were 4 World Cups that season. And you had 4 World Cups to try and make World Championships. And I had missed out on World Championships. And so that was definitely like a motivator for me. Absolutely. Going into the next year. But yeah, it was definitely like, and it was also kind of a bit of a reminder, I would say, going into the 2021-22 season qualifying for the Olympics, that every single event that I did counted. And so really focusing on my process was so important, because I didn't really know how many chances I would get. That, I mean, if I wasn't competing well enough, they could just swap me in for someone else or swap me out for someone else the following week. So I think with a team as deep as ours, that's always a little bit on your mind, I would say. And so focusing on the process and definitely using your opportunities is key.
You took one of those opportunities well, of course, because you got your first World Cup win in the lead up to the Olympics, which, again, I'm obsessed with your blog, Olivia. Seriously, it's great. But I love your posts on it, because the thing that stand out for me on this is you've got a picture with the GOAT, you've got a picture with Mikhail, great photo. But the one photo I love is the photo of you on the podium where you just look so shocked, and like, I don't know like how to describe you. Giaccio standing there with a nice little award gun, all right, another award, great. You're just like, holy, like what the hell has it just happened? Like, I mean, that is, tell me you've got that like photo like framed on your wall, and because that is like the best photo I think I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's on my vision board. It was really funny. It was quiet during like the podium pictures, and I just had like so much adrenaline that I just had to do something with it. So I was like, woo!
But what was that experience like though, winning that? Like, so
exciting moment.
I was going to say, like, that close to an Olympics though, to get your first World Cup win only like 2 months out from an Olympic Games. I mean, talk about doing it at the right time, right?
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, that was huge. I think I had done a decent job mentally, where I don't know if it definitely didn't sink in how consequential it was until after the event. Or like the fact that or how much that event had helped me didn't sink in until after. It was just definitely a really fun day. Yeah.
Now, Beijing had to have been even more fun than that, because you're basically at the top the entire time, which, we, Ben, am I right? I remember we called the men's one. We called the women's finals as well.
We did, because I was in a hotel room in Melbourne having to try and be quiet as Giaccio won a gold medal. And,
oh, that's right. And
been 12 long years since Australia had won an Olympic gold medal in the Winter Olympics, Colin. I had to be calm. Like, how was that for me? Come on.
And Justine and Chloe consoling each other for all the
I warned you, because you were delayed, remember? And I
hours,
spoiled for you that your girls had crashed out. Come on, Colin, you remember.
Yeah, well, but like we were watching that and recording our episode live that day. And one of the things I remember thinking, and this is not a knock against you in any way, but thinking like, I expected an American, near the top. I didn't expect all the Americans to be performing at this level. And when I'm looking through right now, qualification, I mean, you qualified, what is it, fourth here in the first qualification, the small final, you're in fifth place. And then you basically make it all the way to the end. You finish sixth overall. I know you had the expectations to win a gold in Pyeongchang, but like, did you honestly expect that you were going to make the top six in the Olympics in Beijing?
Yes.
Thinking. Yes. That's the right answer.
I honestly,
A lot of dramatic
yes.
tension there. That works.
Honestly, yeah. Yeah, I was trying not to think about it, but yeah, it was, yeah. Yeah, it was interesting. It was a crazy 2.5 weeks. That's for sure. Yeah, it was fun. My favorite part there by far was actually competing.
I was just going to say,
Colin.
Ben, you've been plugging it the whole time. And I spent a lot of my morning just reading through. You chronicled the entire Olympic experience on your blog, which you honestly got to turn into a book at this point. I mean, you're going to have at least 2 people paying for it right now. But
I appreciate it.
But like, with the competition and everything, I mean, you've detailed like, this is what it was like on day one. This is what the snow was like. And even all the other people. I think one of the things that was so good for me to read is you look at both Tokyo and Beijing and you expect these are the pandemic games. Nobody's going to be able. It seemed like, there was a lot of interaction with you and the rest of the team. I mean, obviously very limited to your team itself, but you seem to have an experience where you're able to enjoy the games almost as normal as you can enjoy a games during the pandemic.
The one definite missing piece was my family not being there. I really missed not having them there to see that, because that definitely would have been really special. But hopefully next time in Italy too. And my dad's from Italy, and so I mean, like when I had qualified for the Olympics, and then that whole week, like the amount of people with the last name Giaccio who figured out a way to reach out to me was absurd. Like, I'm your cousin. No, I'm your cousin. It was like, I don't know.
My actually last name, true story, Olivia, is that too as well. I just hide it as Waterworth. So funny story. I'm also your cousin. So.
You don't have the last name to prove it, though.
It's a stage name,
But I was going to say, yeah, we were able to have a lot of interaction within the team for the most part. And then once, I mean, the village itself was really quite safe. I mean, we were masked up 24/7 pretty much. And then, yeah, I mean, one really fun moment was like when Jalen had won silver, and I was able to be there in the Finnish corral, and I like ran up and hugged her. But a FIS official who I know from World Cup like grabbed the back of my jacket and was like, "No, you need to get off of her." I was like, "I've been with her the past week.
Wow,
unmasked."
I was actually going to ask, and feel free to not answer this question. Answer it if you want and ask us to edit out or whatever. But one of the things you allude to on your blog was, I guess some politics or stuff like that. That was like the only negative experience. Is that what it is? Is that the one guy who grabbed you and said, "No, you can't go there"? Is that the worst part? No, there's more. There's more drama.
I thought it was hilarious because he's or in the past was kind of known for like being very much a stickler for the rules for the most random rules that don't make much sense on the FIS World Cup. So it was more of a laugh than anything else.
Colin was like messaging me going like, "Oh, this is the one we need to find out about," kind of like the drama and everything. Because I mean, save it for the book maybe, Olivia, because I think kind of you can really get into that. But you talk about sort of that week when you find out that you're going to the Olympics. Just when you officially knew that you were going, again, after everything that you'd been through, 2018, the ACL, everything, like what is that moment like? And is that the moment where you go, holy shit, I'm an Olympian? Or does that wait until you get to Beijing where you feel that you're an Olympian now?
I think it definitely comes in stages. For me, it was probably 3 or 4, I would say. The first was I think I had finished 4th that day at Deer Valley, and I walked out of the crowd. It's like, oh, that's such a bummer. Like, I was so close to a second podium, but if only I had skied faster, whatever. And then the U.S. team head coach, Matt Ganoza, was waiting right outside of the little tunnel, and he was like, "You're officially an Olympian," and he gave me a hug, and I was instantly crying. There was I don't know, they tried to interview me for NBC, but I don't think it came out.
Can't be any worse than this one today, Olivia. Maybe your second worst interview you've done then.
yeah, exactly. But yeah, it was really nice to see, like, have my parents there in Deer Valley. That was awesome, even though I couldn't like give them a hug or anything, and I had to stay 6
People
feet
are grabbing
away.
you. People are always grabbing you. Get off them. Get off them.
No,
You're trying
I
to
wanted give
FaceTime
them
and they're
a
grabbing you. No, not so
No
close to the
FaceTime.
stream.
Too close. Get away. Very strict in
It
moguls.
felt like that because after that I was like shuttled off all of us who had made the games were shuttled off to separate apartments, and I was by myself for a week, and I
Wow.
didn't see anyone except for at training. And that was a really weird week, but yeah. And then I would say that, like, the second realization stage was boarding that flight. Delta did such an awesome job, like, with the charter on our way out, with like all the Team USA athletes, and I got to meet figure skater who did really well in, like, the pairs event, and that was super cool to follow her games experience and get to know her on the way over. And then I would say, like, the third stage of, like, realizing that I was there was walking out of the tunnel at opening ceremonies. That was crazy. And then the fourth, and probably my favorite, was at the top of the course before my qualifying run. That was so fun. That was so gratifying, I guess. There's really not many words to describe it.
All the boxes tick. Which, I mean, again, your blog post is. I was going to ask you about sort of that experience on the plane, getting to meet other athletes, and
getting on TV.
And getting on TV.
For the opening ceremonies.
Yeah, exactly. Getting fans. But the thing that I love, like, sort of about everything too, that you're writing with it, because as an Olympic geek myself, who, again, I'm not giving up. It could happen one day, but, like, just all the things in the lead up, which we love. Don't shake your head so aggressively, Colin. Come on now.
I wasn't intending for it to be aggressive.
That's
just
my
being
feelings,
realistic.
Colin. I'm a strong-willed man, but now I might.
I'm not making
crying.
it either. Neither of us are making it. We're just being real.
Back me up here, Olivia. Come on. I brought up Meat Loaf, but I love, again, always hearing those little things about, like, the lead up and everything. And the one that I love here is sort of you talking about going to get your uniform, and obviously not a bad partner to have, Ralph Lauren and everything there, and you got your great photo there of you being kitted up, because it's a pretty nice damn kit. People always talk about Canada and Lululemon, but I mean, come on, Ralph Lauren. Like, Rachel worked for them. That's a big deal, right? Hello.
Yeah, that was crazy. That was a very overwhelming day, I would say. They did also such a good job given, like, all the COVID policies we had to follow, but the amount of stuff that we got is absurd. Like, it's like my entire wardrobe now. Like, I didn't really have that many clothes before, but, like, I mean, I think this is a sweatshirt, and I forget that I, like, am wearing it so often, and then people ask me, and I'm like, oh, I guess I'm wearing. Like,
is that common around Colombia? Are you just walking around the campus there, and there's just other Olympians that you bump into? Oh, you moguls. Oh, swimming. Yeah, all right.
There's a fencer somewhere on campus. I've yet to meet her.
Oh.
And then actually at DC, it was crazy. I checked in with, and the lady who was helping, who worked for the USLPC or I think she still works there, but she was a Columbia alum, and she was like, oh, there are 3 other Columbia Olympians here. I was like, there's 500 athletes. What are the chances I meet them? And I ended up meeting all of them in the like 3 days, just by chance, like, in conversation, like, asking what they're doing. And I'm like, oh, I'm a Columbia alum. I was like, whoa, that's crazy. So I think there's like rhythmic gymnasts and then 2 Paralympian rowers,
Right.
or 1 Paralympian rower and then 1
But you're the only winter.
Olympic rower.
All their summer people. Come
Yes.
on.
Yes.
You're the cool, literally. You're winter. So, it's better.
This next question, you'll be the third mogul athlete that at least I've asked this to, and Ben, you may have asked the other ones as well. But I think this is going to be the first time we've been able to ask this to somebody where the decision's made, it's final. Dual moguls is now actually a sport. So this will be there when you're there with your entire your dad's extended family watching you in a couple of years. You're going to be able to participate in 2 sports. I mean, excited about that. Did you have any indication? Because we were speculating about this when we were commentating your event and the men's event live. We're like, surely they got to have it. How long is it going to take for a second mogul discipline in freestyle skiing? Like, did you know this was coming? And what are your thoughts that you're going to get a chance to win 2 medals in the next Olympics?
That was so exciting for our sport. I mean, it's been a very long time coming. I think there have been a number of people who have done like a really, really good job pushing. But I think Hannah Carney, like our FIS officer, she has done so much for that on that front. And it's been since like 2018 that they've been, I mean, before that they were pushing, but like since then they knew that Italy would be kind of a good place for it. It's easy because they already have the athletes, the venue. They really don't need to do anything else. They don't need more lodging. So it was kind of a no-brainer. And then for our sport, it's so much more accessible to the public. So it'll be really exciting to get more viewership and hopefully more people involved in the sport. And so I'm so excited. It's going to be so fun.
I've never seen it.
Incredible.
I'll admit I've never seen it before. So I'm.
Wait, really?
Really? Yeah.
I thought that was a joke.
No. Well, yeah. I often hear that a lot of my shows when I thought that was a joke. No, I sadly haven't. But I mean, the thing, I'm excited about seeing it. And I think the beauty of the Winter Games is that when they add events, they generally don't have to take another event off. Like Summer Olympics is so stacked that it's like, oh, cool, we're going to add this, but sucks for you. We have to take another event off because they've only got a certain amount of medals. The Winter Olympics, they've got enough free reign to do it. And when you got someone like Eileen Gu, great athlete, but she's, the most successful freestyle athlete of all time. Well, she's got 20 events to compete in. Of course she's going to win 20 medals. Whereas, like, it's not fair for Olivia. She can only compete in 1. So, it's finally good, I guess, that you can catch up to Eileen now. You can win a few more medals.
That's true. That's a great point. I mean, if you look at, that's why I think it's so impressive to look at Mikkel Kingsbury's win percentage. It's just honestly stupid. It's ridiculous how much he wins. It's really incredible. But yeah, I agree. It's awesome to have another event. And it's also pretty crazy. I knew this obviously going in because this is how moguls usually, has gone in the past several Olympics, but you get there, compete before opening ceremonies, go to opening ceremonies, and then compete the next day and you're done. Yeah. Which is crazy. And there's still like a whole lot, like 90% of the Olympics has yet to happen. Yeah. Which I think is, I want to be absurd.
Well, just on those Olympics, again, the blog, we love it. A couple of things that obviously come with the Olympics. I love you talking about the pin trading. It's one of our favorite things that we like to talk about here with our guests. I love the photo you've got there with Taylor and Bing Duen Duen. That's a fantastic photo. And ultimately, after the Olympics too, you get to go to the White House. Not a bad little reward as well for competing in the Olympics when they sort of combine the summer and the winters going there. Did you meet Joe? Was he there? Was Joe or Kamala there that you got to meet them?
I did not meet Joe or Kamala. Damn. I was seated up towards the top of the bleachers, and it was a mad rush to get. It was interesting because I had heard that each president had kind of handled it differently. Like after Sochi, Obama had done, I guess, my teammate Brad Wilson was there and went to DC. And so Obama had done like individually talked to every single athlete and then took photos with each team. Wow. Trump had left before meeting any athletes.
Trump didn't even know it was Biden... on. What? Olympians? What's that? I'm going to play golf.
And then Biden and Kamala, it was just kind of like first come, first serve, which was cool. And like some of my teammates, I think, got photos with them. But it was also absurd because there were so many Olympians. But it was so cool to meet some Olympians and like hear their stories as well and their experiences at Tokyo, and hear it was just so interesting. Everything from like I had talked to this guy who had done karate in Tokyo, and then
Wow.
for Paris, it's gone. Like certain things like that. It's just crazy to hear everyone's perspective. And then like meeting like there's a climber who lives in Salt Lake who like my friend group, like who are a bunch of athletes also, like she hangs out with too now, which is cool. And we never would have known her if it weren't for DC. So yeah, pretty funny.
It's always
crazy experience. That was like a whirlwind.
Hearing that, because it's sort of, you know, as a winter athlete too, you don't often get to go to multi-sport events, so you don't often get to meet people like, say, the Sun Ones, but to have an opportunity like that where obviously you got two Olympics very close together to interact with the Summers, like a great opportunity. Olivia, we've got some questions, some fun get to know questions we'll ask you in just a second. I'm not getting there, Colin. Don't worry. I've got I'm not jumping ahead because I've got an important question to ask you, an Australian-based question. Because I was reading in one of your blogs sort of about your experiences in Australia, and you mentioned Tim Tams, of course, because who wouldn't love Tim Tams? But the thing that made me happy, you mentioned mint slices. No one mentions mint slices. They're always the Tim Tams, which are great. Don't get me wrong. But mint slices may be better than Tim Tams. I'm glad. Would you agree with that, or are they just equal to you with Tim Tams?
Yes, I would agree. I think also with Tim Tams, my favorite is caramel. And then I also discovered the mint Tim Tam last time. And I feel like it's pretty comparable to mint slice, but I think the
white chocolate Tim Tams. I'm a white chocolate man, and the white chocolate ones are pretty good. I had yesterday a salted caramel Tim Tam. So it was quite nice. Colin, you've tried Tim Tams, of course.
Well, I haven't. My twins have, though.
Well,
because I can't eat it, but they were able to.
You should have just said yes there to go along with the bit there, Colin. But
the twins loved it.
Twins loved it. But I'm just glad the mint slice is getting love, Olivia. Just Tim Tams good for
also,
love, but, you know.
Yeah, this is, I think, a little bit of a controversial opinion for non-Aussies, but I am a Vegemite fan.
Ooh.
I think you have to try it the first time properly, which is where a lot of people go wrong. Like all my teammates who hate it just tried like a spoonful out of the jar.
I think it's Nutella.
Like that's not what you're supposed to do.
You need to tell me how to do it then, because Ben sent that and I can't have it, but my wife has been too hesitant to try it. So if you give me the way to try it, and I could say, an Olympian said, "This is the way you try it."
Bugger the real Australian. Bugger the guy where the stuff is from. Let's go for the American.
She knows you. She knows you, Ben.
Oh, we're besties. We're cousins.
She knows your tastes.
Yeah.
Well, I had like when I trained with Steamboat Springs Winter Sports Club, my coach actually was Australian. And so she introduced us to it when we went to Australia. And what you did is like toast a piece of bread, put butter on it and a little bit of Vegemite, and like not that much, less than you think. And it just kind of makes it a little bit more salty, and the butter helps. And then also one thing I personally really like on top is if you melt cheese.
Yep.
On top of that too.
Okay, cheese. Now you won her over.
So I got the stamp of approval.
Yes.
I am very un-Australian. That's why I've lived overseas for so long. I actually got deported because I'm not a big Vegemite fan. But like you do it lightly with the cheese. There's one called Cheesy Bite, which is like cream cheese mixed with Vegemite, which isn't too bad. But yeah, that's where everyone gets it wrong. That's where you see these videos of like, Americans try Australian food, and you're like, ha ha ha, they just get a spoon. I'm like, you're an idiot, mate. Like even Australians don't do that. Like, come on, that's like, oh, everything in Australia kills you. It's like, yeah, because you come to Australia and you grab a spider and go, look at this cute little. Even we don't do that. Like, you know, we're not stupid.
That's there though. In the Perisher Ski Lodge, biggest spider I've ever seen.
Like this big? Are we talking hand size? Yeah. I've got like 5 of them above me right now, Olivia.
It was on the ceiling, and everyone would be doing their warm up and just looking at it, and there'd be like a little circle where no one would go in or put their bags in case it fell.
Yeah, I am terrified of them. And the funny thing is, living overseas is like I lived in New Zealand, then in Canada. And then if somebody says like, spider, I'm like, it's like this big. That's an ant. I hear the words, spider in Australia. I'm in the other room. I'm like, nah, I'm done. I'm good. I'm in the other room. Tell me when it's gone.
Yeah, the other room isn't far.
No, exactly. They know where you are. They will follow you. They will find you.
Now, before we get to our final set of questions, which I'll explain in a moment, one thing I want to ask, this is another question we ask past mogul skiers. I'm looking to add a third event, a third discipline for moguls in the Olympics. And I had the idea of, we have this now with ski cross and snowboard cross and everything, where they'll have a men's and women's team thing. So the man goes down first, and then you combine his time with the woman. So if you had to pick right now, don't worry, none of them are listening. Nobody's going to feel bad, or maybe they are all listening. I don't know. But if you had to pick one of your male teammates where they're making this now a team event, who's it going to be and why?
How's it scored?
Oh.
Come
Come on,
get
Colin.
to decide. You're the first one to ask that
That's
question.
a cop out. That's a cop out answer, Colin.
Well, is it like 60, 20, 20? Do you combine our scores? Is it scored like singles and then you combine our scores?
Completely combined scores.
Are we doing a best of 2, or is it just like one run?
One run, single run. That's it.
It's very technical, this answer.
Well, I have 2 in my mind, but they're very close. I would probably have to go with Nick H.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And what would be the reason? What specifically does he capitalize on that you think you might maybe slightly come short on?
Well, our air scores would be pretty sweet, but I don't know how he's been skiing this prep season. I think things might be changing a little bit. So
he was a bit of a surprise in Beijing too, right?
Yes and no. I think when he puts it all together like that, it's really cool to watch. And yeah, it's really cool. I think he's definitely just coming into it. So he's so little still. He's not that little, but like he's getting better, like coming into his own a bit more, I would say.
That is definitely the most detailed answer. I mean, Sophie Ash literally just said, Sophie Ash's answer, no joke, was, well, I think I'll pick this guy because I really suck at this and he's better. She goes, well, but no, I kind of suck at that too. So you put more thought into yours. I just want to say I'm waiting for the day where somebody can pass along the message that I have a son that is technically named after one of your teammates to a certain degree. We have twins, and I was trying to convince my wife to go with a mogul's name. And of course, I was also trying to convince her to go with a James Bond. Well, I was trying to convince her to go with a James Bond, and there are a lot of things I said it's going to be this. So we basically decided on names, and one of the names we decided on for our twins is Casey. So for a while, I was trying to get Casey and Jesse, the two Andriga brothers, together. So if you ever see Casey, pass it along that there is somebody out there who has a twin named after him and not Jesse.
I don't know if they're competitive. Colin. I think that's a bit creepy, to be honest.
That's kind of funny, actually. Have you met either of them?
I haven't, no.
That's funny. That's really funny, actually.
Jesse's going to be very upset. We get a Casey.
So, yeah, Casey would be.
I've got to see the pictures are behind you, Colin, because I don't know if you met Olivia, because Colin stalks you people at the end of the stalking. The lines.
Do, yeah.
So Colin's got like his wall of like he doesn't have pictures of him and his wife or him and his kids. He's got pictures of him and the DeFurla Point sisters instead.
I've got Mikkel Kingsbury. I got Justine and Chloe. I've got Perrin Lafont and Akima Kurishima somewhere here. I really need more pictures of my family.
Akuma is my favorite. He's awesome. He's so cool.
I honestly have to say, the most surprising thing was meeting him the first time, because he looks so serious when he skis. And I go up and I'm like, I don't know how much he speaks English. And I'm like, can I get a picture with you? And he's like, yeah, sure. And then as soon as I'm snapping the picture, I look behind him and he's going like he's basically screaming and throwing his hands up, like so much energy.
Yeah, he's so fun. He came and trained with our team a little bit this year and last year as well. And when he went to Hood with us, it was insane. I've never seen anything like it. He only, like this year, I think he only trained right spinning tricks. Don't ask me why, but it's really, I don't know, his air awareness, I guess, but he's just so good. It's wild. It's so cool to watch.
Just before... Sorry, go ahead, Colin. I was
just going to say very competitive too.
We're very competitive to get questions in right now. Just before we get to the questions, the final questions as well, which I feel we're going to be here for a while. You're going to be that analytical with them, which is going to be great. But I'm proposing extra mogul events too. The downhill mogul. I think we could just have like a very combined alpine skiing with moguls. I mean, very far. It might hurt the knees a little bit. The mogul half pipe, like lots of bumps on the half pipe. Why not? And the bobsled mogul, just have like a bobsled track with lots of bumps. Like, I mean, you know, like why not? I think you guys could give it a crack eventually.
Every ACL torn by the end of the Olympics.
Yeah.
Whoever doesn't get
I
injured
would
at the
not
bottom, you
definitely
win,
not do that.
basically. Ice hockey
But they
moguls?
definitely no. They definitely should put a normal person in the Olympics though.
Yeah, like me.
For every sport.
There you
For
go.
yeah, there you go.
10
That's how
shots.
we could make it.
I would do it. You know, I don't need my knees. I'm old. They're going to break one day anyway. Put me on one. My one time skiing, Olivia, I lasted 30 seconds before I chickened out and went back to lodge and had coffee. So if I can last 40
Really?
seconds at the Olympics, maybe I'll do well. Or you can teach me how to ski so I'm not such a wuss.
Well, I think that would be cheating before
Ah,
thrown into the event.
what's a bit of cheating between friends or cousins, right? You know, like, what does it matter? We're Meat Loaf
funny.
buddies now, Olivia. Like, that's peak friendship right there.
Now, before we get to this will be the last time we say before we get to our final
Jesus
set of
Christ, just
questions.
ask the questions already. Olivia's got shit to do, Colin. Come on.
I was just going to say it technically is our final set of questions, but just to explain our final set of questions. So something that they did for Team Canada did in the lead up to Rio and then Pyeongchang is they gave the athletes a questionnaire. That some of the questions are sports related, some of them are just bizarre questions, and they fill it out in their own handwriting. There are some requests here for drawings that the Canadian athletes did draw. You would not be the first person to submit a drawing to us if you chose to answer one of those questions and submit a drawing later. In fact, you'd be competing with Sophie Ash's drawing of her dog, but we'll have to see if you get that because we're actually using Mikhail Kingsbury's questionnaire here. So you're answering the same question as the king, and we'll see how you compare here. So if you're ready, we'll start with first question. My favorite Olympic moment is?
Oh, wait, like ever of anyone?
It can be anyone. It can be yours. It can be whatever you want to answer.
His answer was definitely his own.
Yeah. I would
Which one, though?
Oh, I don't know. There's so many good ones. I don't know if I can answer that question.
That's the answer. We'll take that.
No, there's so many good ones.
I also heard Dale Begg Smith gold in 2006. That's also what I heard.
She has to answer Hannah Kearney, if anybody.
I mean, yeah. Watching women's, I love like the heartwarmers too, though.
Mm-hmm.
Like the two friends from Greece, and I forget where else who both won gold in Tokyo.
Oh, yeah.
Track.
Mm-hmm.
That was really cool. Women's World Cup soccer winning gold is always so fun to watch. Simone Biles dominating Rio is a good one. I followed her that Olympics like crazy.
Yeah, again, we
Oh my
never
gosh,
ask this
so
to an
I'm
American
really
because they've got
sad.
too
I'm
many to
really
choose from,
thinking.
Colin.
Yeah.
There's so many though. There's so many.
This
good
is
ones.
why we get just like Canadians and Australians, and we've got like two to choose from. America, fuck, which Olympics? Jesus, which day? Which of Michael Phelps' golds would you like me to talk about?
I know, seriously. I mean, he has too many to choose
I
from.
know.
So
Share them around, Michael. Come on. I was going to say lazy, not lazy, the opposite of lazy. Too many, Michael. Stop winning them. I was going to say, I'm surprised, Colin, you didn't take a subtle Canadian brag there when Olivia mentioned the women's soccer team always winning gold. You could have just said, well, Tokyo, you didn't. So,
well, not Tokyo, but when, yeah.
I'm doing it
I'm
for
not-
Colin.
I mean,
I'm
well,
not competitive enough.
America beat Australia for bronze,
Yeah.
so I can't say anything. As a kid, who was your favorite sports team?
sports team, U.S. women's soccer.
Yeah. We get an Olympic answer. We don't usually get that. That's good.
Yeah. Pretty good team to follow,
Yeah,
too.
I mean, I definitely follow, like, U.S. sports, and I like play fantasy football, but I'm not like a.
Do you have a team, though? Like, are you, now that you're in New York, are you sort of get on the Giants or the Jets? Or?
My dad and brother are Jets fans, but I couldn't really stick with that after the
No, I don't think you could. That's too much pain, right?
It's hard. Yeah.
I'm a Buffalo fan. I mean, it's a good thing now, but for the most of my life, it hasn't been a good thing.
It is.
So
Yeah, one of my best friends is a Buffalo fan.
yeah,
So,
it's only now. It's only now we can admit that. Yeah.
Now, the next one, there's no drawing element to this, but I'll say Mikkel Kingsbury has attached a picture of himself answering this question. If I could be any superhero, I would be.
Wonder Woman.
Good answer.
Have you ever dressed as Wonder Woman? Because he's got a picture of him in the Batman costume here.
That's awesome. How did you get your hands on this?
Oh, we know people. We're very well connected on this show. Once you start talking to one mogul skier, then the dominoes fall. We're only doing this to get to Dale.
That's true.
We're only doing it to get to Dale.
True.
Eventually, we will find our way to him. So.
I can't get to Dale.
No one can. He's on his island somewhere. We don't know it. Even Australian Olympic Committee doesn't know where he is. He just, sends text messages. Yeah, he sent. I can't remember which one of our athletes.
I guess that makes sense.
One of our athletes in Beijing. He it made the news here that Dale texted him basically saying, "Great performance. You were robbed, Dale." And everyone in Australia was like, we haven't heard from him in 6 years. This is huge. Even Taylor, bro, none of them know where he is.
There's more sightings of Sasquatch than there is Dale Big Smith.
Yeah, it was. I'm completely great Olympic host here. Our guy I think he got sixth in the final as well, similar to you.
Cooper,
right? It was Cooper. Yeah, okay, there you go. So,
he did. Well.
So we look. No disrespect to Cooper, but I was more happy for that Dale.
Vancouver, Brian winning bronze. That was so cool.
There you go. Right. See,
and also hearing him talk about that day is pretty neat as well. Yeah. Okay, that's another good one. But
you can just answer all of them with those. I like again, America. You got too many to choose from.
Come up with a list, and we'll have you back on in a week and just read it out.
There's a lot.
Might know the answer to this one, but I could be wrong. If you could be an Olympian in any other sport besides your own, what would it be?
I'm trying to think of a second answer to this. I mean, I think, soccer, because I could do that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I would have to train a lot to be able to do that. But I think from being fearless to be this fearless would be crazy, but bobsled.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Scare the shit out of you, but it would be great.
yeah. But if I could be that fearless, it would be crazy to live life like that.
Now, how about this? Your favorite music artists are?
Dua Lipa.
Good answer. Oh, there you go. Colin, Rihanna, there you're excited now. Rihanna. Yes. That's Colin's girl.
Okay, you're now my new favorite mogul skier. Forget Kingsbury, forget the Furla Point sisters. You're going on the wall.
I was going to say, I don't know. I don't think there's any way I could beat Kingsbury.
Oh, does he like Rihanna?
Unless I were Canadian.
Well, he answered Metallica. I'll take Rihanna over Metallica.
Yeah. Super Bowl. We're looking forward to the Super Bowl, seeing her perform at it now. That's going to be
That'll
pretty
be fun.
exciting. Yeah, very, very much so. If you could eat one food for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Sushi.
Ooh.
Oh, nice.
Nice. Okay.
I'm so hungry. We record these right before supper for me. We literally record. We got to strike these questions. This next one, I'm actually curious because you might have a match with Mikkel Kingsbury here. My favorite place to compete is.
I think it's a three-way tie.
Go for it.
You can give us all three.
Between Ruka, Deer Valley, and Tazawako.
Nice.
Oh, we have a match with Deer Valley. That's Kingsbury's favorite place.
Deer Valley, I think all winter athletes answer. That's just obviously a very great venue to compete in.
Crazy. Yeah, if you've ever made finals at a Mogul World Cup event, then
nice.
When it's
that's my bucket list is to be able to be in Deer Valley for a Moguls World Cup and be in Mount Tremblant. Those are my two. Okay, planning vacation.
Well, it's
this
not
would be one you want to do
anymore.
Yeah, and it's not in Calgary either. I don't know what's happening.
I know. Calgary was a nice event. I really enjoyed it.
Can I ask a really stupid question? I've asked a few on this episode, so I don't know why I'm asking for permission. But when you go to Deer Valley, are there like lots of deers in a valley?
No.
Oh, well, that's false advertising. Come on.
Yeah,
Jeez.
maybe.
That's like advertising Winnipeg's a nice city. Like, what the hell's going on there? How many dumb questions have we asked now? That's about 7. Your favorite thing to do in the summer is?
Recently, it's been mountain biking.
Nice. There's another Olympic sport
Yeah,
for
it's
you.
fun to be.
Yeah.
I don't know if I could ever do that.
Never say never,
I don't
Olivia.
think
Get the
I'd-
dream journal out. Come on. Brisbane
I
2032.
know. I
You've
don't
got
think
10
I'd
years.
be good. Even though if I trained for 10 years, I don't know.
Olympics in
really
Australia. Mint slices. Come on.
I know, mid slices. Yeah.
That's the goal.
I don't know. That's very, very difficult.
Hey, our
Yeah,
final
it's
question is
very
usually our final question is usually something that's sports related, but oddly enough, this one is not. But I'm very curious about the answer because this is where I'll get recommendations for my children. Your favorite cartoon to watch growing up was?
Ooh. I really enjoyed the Looney Tunes.
Yes.
Like a
Oh,
big disc set
Yes.
of them and would watch them on the road trips every weekend.
I was a bit scared. Like, this is one of those answers that I feel really like makes us feel old because you've always got that
definitely.
cartoon of your era. But I'm so glad you said Looney Tunes because that's the
When-
ageless cartoon that I think any age will watch. Because
It
I
is
grew up
ageless,
on the Looney
yeah.
Tunes.
once
Tom
somebody
and Jerry
answers us,
also.
oh wow, there we go, that one for sure. Well, I literally have a box set of that. My son, I'm not joking, he taught himself how to read and write, but the first thing he ever spelled out was Tom and Jerry. He took these magnetic letters and he didn't have all the letters, so he was turning like numbers backwards. So that's how
Wow.
big Tom and Jerry is in
That's
this
very
house.
impressive. Yeah,
Yeah.
seriously.
Colin's actually just a
He
really
does a lot of other
lazy.
things that,
He's a really lazy father, so his children have to teach themselves. He's too busy
yeah,
podcasting.
exactly. Daddy, how do you write? How do
Shut
you
up! I'm
read?
recording. I'm speaking to an Olympian.
Exactly.
Go away.
Moguls, get out of my face.
Oh boy.
Before we let you go, you can plug your blog, tell people how they can find the blog. We plugged in enough. Also, how do people find you on social media?
You can find my blog at www.oliviagiaccio.com. And then my Instagram is Olivia Giaccio. And then Facebook is OG Mogul Skier. But I mean, once you find one, you'll be able to.
It's a rabbit hole.
So,
Actually, can I
Yeah.
ask another dumb question, Olivia? What's your favorite Meat Loaf song?
I don't know. I know who he is, but I don't know.
Rip Meat. Ah, yeah. Correct answer is Paradise by the Dashboard Lights, by the way, just saying. Listen
In
to
case the next podcaster on asks the same question, now you got an answer.
I want a blog post, my top 10 Meat Loaf songs. After doing an interview, I listened to his back catalogue, and I have to say, Ben was correct.
Maybe you'll see it on the next one.
Hey, I expect to.
Olivia, I'm always thrilled we can have a mogul skier on here, and it was fantastic getting to hear your story. And looking forward to seeing you in the next Olympics, and next time I can actually make a road trip to see a World Cup event.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Great to meet you guys. Thanks for having me. That was fun.